Welcome to Morganton Live, another podcast. Here with my good friend Bill Wilson. He's been a staple here in Morganton forever. He's not here any longer, but Bill used to run the comma here in town, the City of Morganton Municipal Auditorium, and I've got a lot of memories with Bill and all the things he's done. I just want to have Bill on the podcast, and Bill, kind of tell us what's going on in your life and how things have changed here in Morganton. That's a loaded question.
Well, I'm getting older, so that's one thing. I retired here in January of 16, so a little over 8 years ago, and things have always been moving in Morganton.
Yeah.
You know, things are changing
Right.
almost daily, certainly monthly and yearly. So coming back every now and then, I see these changes, and it makes Morganton a lot brighter and happier
Right.
place to be, I'm sure, for a lot of folks.
Yes.
We live in Boone now. We moved up there in 2017 and live up on the mountain where it's kind of cool.
No
And we
doubt.
get snowed in a little bit every now and then, but not doing much in terms of performing arts or dealing with that, although I do stay in touch
Right.
with the old colleagues,
Right.
stuff like that.
Well, that's been, I've been knowing you for so long here, since I've been here, since in the 90s. Bill Wilson's always just been associated, just a normal name to me, a staple for here in town. And, what are some of the things that you look back on, Bill, and reflect back on, some of maybe the highlights of some of the shows or something that really stuck out in your mind over your time here?
Well, I came from a performing arts background, a theater background. I was directing and designing when I came here. I'd never done a lot of presenting,
Right.
which is contracting and working with artists and managements to put a season together. So the City Auditorium was a vision of Andy Kistler, who was a mayor back in the 80s,
Right.
and Doug Bean, who was the city manager then. I came in early part of 86, and there was a transition then. We had a new mayor. His name was Mel Cohen.
Right.
And Mel got on board very quickly and was behind the auditorium and wanted it to be a success. And a new city manager came in.
Right.
And so a lot of adjustments were being made, which I didn't have to make because everything was new to me.
Right.
Didn't matter a whole lot. And we opened with a big Broadway show called The Tap Dance Kid and had a big reception. And that was kind of the honeymoon.
Yeah.
From that point on, it was work. We tried to create a name, which
Right.
was comma,
Right.
rather than putting out City of Morganton Municipal Auditorium.
Right.
So we shortened that and gave a new definition to an old word,
Yeah.
and got down to the business of doing performances. And there are little girls who were 6 and 7 years old that did dance recitals for Sherry's School of Dance and Ann
Right.
Huffman and Eleanor Peters and folks like that back in
Yes.
the day. And those girls today are grandmothers,
I know. It's amazing, ain't it?
or at least mothers.
You're right.
And maybe grandmothers,
Yes.
starting back then. So there's been a lot of memories created at Comma.
Right.
And whether it's a Central or Western Piedmont graduation,
Mm-hmm.
a dance recital, maybe a worship service, a Broadway show, concert. We've even had a couple funerals
Yes.
held at Comma over the years. But it's been a great meeting place and a great asset. And we tried to do things that would put us on the map. And
Right.
Comma over the years was put on, I think, numerous local maps, certainly statewide, even national, and in a
Right.
couple instances, international maps. One of the first things that sort of gave us a little jump start, and I believed in that too. It was not just, do a season and
Right.
finish that up and then do it again and do it again and do some things that gave a little variety.
Sure.
We had a fellow showed up here one January and said he had written a play about Senator Sam Ervin. He was a former editor of the paper here, Steve Bowser. And long story short, in 10 months, the Rotary Club got behind it and produced that show, ran it for a weekend with a local boy named Joe Winsco, who actually, Sam had been his Sunday school teacher.
What about
and
that?
Joe's a professional actor, lives in Roanoke now, and he played the role of Sam, and it was not just Watergate. It was
Right. Sure.
his whole life, Morganton, and
Sure.
his World War I experiences and things of that nature, and his life with his family, his
Yeah.
children, and his wife, and so forth. A few years after that, and that was right at 2001, and that was at a tough time for this country because we were dealing with 9/11.
Right.
And that play opened about a month, 3 weeks after 9/11. So there were a lot of distractions then, but it fared well, and it actually played in a few other venues
Right.
throughout the state. Good historical piece, a good quality art piece
Exactly.
too. A few years after that, we had the good fortune to make contact with an artist, fresco artist named Benjamin Long.
Right.
Ben's in Asheville and still working, and he was on site here from January till April of 2004, putting a fresco called Sacred Dance in the Muses on the ceiling of Comma. And there were some key people that were involved in that in raising the money because it was
Right.
an expensive
Sure.
project. Bill Allman and Otto Werner in particular were strongly behind this, raising the funding to make that happen.
Sure.
And it's still there and will be there. That will keep the building there. As
Yeah.
a matter of fact, a lot longer than it might have been otherwise.
What's the centerpiece? You know.
Well, it's a masterpiece.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually. And then shortly before I left, there was interest in doing memorializing Etta Baker,
Right.
Piedmont blues guitarist,
Yes.
who spent most of her life in Morganton.
Yeah.
She wasn't born in Morganton, but she spent a great deal of time, raised her family here and so forth. And there's a great sculpture sitting on the grounds at Comma.
Yes.
Along with, inside, there's a showcase of a lot of Etta's memorabilia, I
Right.
guess you could say, her guitar.
That's right.
Some even clothing, pictures that she had with B.B. King and
Yeah.
people like that. But did a lot of shows. I don't know how many, somewhere between, in the main stage series, somewhere between, starting off maybe 12 in the last season's 20, 22
Yeah.
shows.
Wow.
We had artists that you would have seen, you and I might have seen on the old Ed Sullivan Show.
Yeah.
And then we had up-and-coming artists. We've going back years, Marcel Marceau was
Yeah.
here. Steve Allen and Jane Meadows
Yeah.
were here. Mickey Rooney
Right.
did a great show here, wonderful show at 80 years old.
What about that?
Um,
Old Mickey Rooney,
we had
National Velvet.
great group from, I remember that we put together, Morganton or Comma was instrumental in working with putting together a group called the North Carolina Presenters Consortium. And that, rather than all these theaters like Blumenthal and so
Right.
forth, and Duke University and Appalachian and so forth, competing against each other, we worked together. So we did a lot of block booking, and one of our first was a group out of Nova Scotia called Leahy.
Oh man, I
They-
remember that.
They were an opening act for Shania Twain in
Yeah.
her world tour years ago, and we brought them here. I think they did 14 or 15 shows
They were
statewide,
awesome.
and there were 3 empty seats statewide.
Yeah.
We had one of them.
Yeah.
So, but wonderful show there.
Yes.
Great memories. Country music. We had Roy Clark in here, Chet Atkins, Boots Randolph, Floyd Kramer. A lot of the legends who are
Yes.
no longer with us anymore.
I
Ray
know.
Charles played at Comma.
Right.
The children's school brought him in. And it wasn't just the city made a commitment to provide great entertainment. And there were some growing pains with it, definitely. The sticker shock.
Right.
Well,
That's always up front.
well, it's Morganton. It shouldn't cost that much. It's in our hometown. Well, you're paying $50
Yeah.
at that time to see a Broadway show, and folks here would kind of say, "Well, shouldn't be like $10 or $12 here?"
we
Well,
ain't eating
no.
popcorn.
Yeah. So we had to. There was an education process
Right.
that went along.
Sure.
We developed a good staff. Some of the staff is still
Yeah.
there today.
Right.
It's a great facility. It's a place I enjoyed going to work every day.
Yeah.
There were some things occasionally that I didn't like to do,
Right.
but it was just part of the
That's part of it.
necessary evils of of getting through the day sometimes. But 99% of it was just a lot of fun. And you know, you and I both know a lot of people, and a lot of folks just go to work every day to get through the day and get home and come back and do it the next day. And it's a good feeling when you want to go to work.
That's
you can't
right.
wait to go back the next
That's
day
right.
and keep that ball rolling.
Exactly. I kind of feel that coming back, you know, Bill, you know, just like you said, that sense of pride and enjoying going to work. So many different, we're fortunate to have a place like the Common. Everybody's investing in. They're doing changes now and renovations. And, you know, we've got such a great history of people, like I said, that's been through there and catching these moments. And people like you, I think you're just an important part of it too. You was always such a great MC, I thought, you know. You know, you always morphed into whatever the show was needing, the audience needed. And you know, so I like to hear these stories.
I wasn't that great of an MC. I tried to do the best I could with what I had. I do remember one night going out and I forgot who the artist was. And I said, I don't know who they are, but they're really good and you're going to enjoy them. But we did some unique stuff, and
Sure.
I think it put Morganton on a map, not maybe the map, but a map.
Sure.
Otherwise people might not know about. We had folks that would come from Charlotte and Statesville, Gastonia, Asheville, rather than going to those towns where you had to compete with traffic and big crowds at restaurants and stuff. We had a lady from Atlanta who was a season ticket holder. Mm-hmm. She had a sister in Morganton, and they planned their visits around our shows.
There you go.
She's a season ticket holder from Atlanta.
Yeah.
So we put we put faces to the to Kama. I think, like I said, I felt very much connected, and that people needed to identify people and not just the facility. So I felt, you know, to go out and introduce an artist or a group, and I usually didn't introduce a Broadway show, but an artist I did.
Sure.
Or an artist group. And I think people like that connection.
They do.
And there was nothing standoffish or uppity about Kama. I think there's some feeling about that maybe early on, but that went away very quickly.
Right.
We took some chances. We did some things that were kind of out there a little bit that you might not expect to see in Morganton.
Right.
It's amazing how many people would come up to me after a show and said, you know, we wouldn't have come to this show probably if we didn't have the season ticket, but it's the best thing I've seen all year.
Yeah,
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I would have never, we had a Korean group here of dancers, ages 8 to about 12 or 13, 30 of them from Korea. Unbelievable, just absolutely unbelievable. And I worked one year where, and that was one of the groups, where I took them to churches.
Okay.
So they had a Saturday night show, and then they were part of a worship service. So the next morning I had some cowboys go over to First Methodist, and they did some cowboy trails, gospel tunes at the First Church there. I had a Tennessee Children's Dance group go to First Presbyterian, and the Coasters, the Drifters, and the Platters went to Green Street.
Yeah, ain't that awesome?
And Reverend Mack put them in the choir.
There you go. That's a good setup for choir now.
Well, he was short. He was short some men. Reverend Mack never let an opportunity pass him by.
That's right.
So, again, those are old war stories, but good things happened. We did one for a few, I don't think they do it anymore, but went out on a limb and did a show. The last 4 or 5 years I was there, we did a show called The Show.
That's
We
right.
didn't tell anybody what it was. We had as good an attendance on that as we did anything else.
Yeah.
Simply because you had people who had season tickets and were going to come to it anyway. There were the people who were curious and just wanted to know what was going on, and there were people that just needed something to do that night.
Yeah.
So we had good crowds for that. Everything was by no means a sellout.
Right.
There were a lot of sellouts that we did have, but it gave
good turnouts.
Well, going back to the dance recitals, this gave these 6, 7, 10, 15-year-old young ladies who were taking tap and ballet a good venue.
Yeah, big stage.
They weren't performing on a gymnasium floor or something like that.
I love
acoustics, you could hear the music and so forth. So lot of good memories, good things happened there, and
Man, I know.
I'm proud of what happened and what we did. And we started from scratch. We didn't have contracts. We didn't have anything to go on other than the building was going up when I was there, and how do we get started?
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah.
What are our rules and regulations?
Right. Flying by the seat of her pants.
What works, what doesn't work.
Right.
And some of it was trial and error.
Yeah.
And I had a few friends that I'd become acquainted with over the years who literally I just called and said, I've got this job in Morganton. How do I do it? What do I do?
Right. Please counsel me.
And, after a while, after
It
a few
all
years,
clicked.
they're calling me saying, how do I do it?
Right.
So
You're
not
doing a
them,
good
but
job.
others. Yeah.
Right.
So you kind of morph into that over
Yeah,
the time.
exactly. I love it, Bill. I'm glad that we got a foundation here in Morganton that you guys have created through that they want that. They want entertainment, and they want to, they want to have a night out. And like I said, first time I came to Morganton here from Rock Hill, and I seen the comment, it was like a spiritual moment for me, and I think that is like that for a lot of people because you give the kids a place where they can have a big stage instead, and it gives them the big worldly experience.
And pride,
right?
a lot
Yes,
of pride.
a lot of pride. Exactly. I'm glad to see the identity on the Common now, and it just looks, everything just and I'm looking forward to what we're doing here at Morganton Live and everything that's going on here in the town and promoting that and then building on that momentum that you guys have done, in the past. And I appreciate it.
Well, I won't say it was always easy, but it wasn't really hard work either. People pitched in. A lot of some churches, nonprofits, civic clubs, when the civic clubs were really strong, found that comma was a good way to make a little bit of money for them.
Yeah.
They could bring in the embers,
Right.
and make $3,000, $4,000, $5,000,
Sure.
which went toward their projects,
Sure.
whether it was buying bicycles or
And everybody
helping to
won.
feed people or helping some way to help
Yeah.
people in many ways. It wasn't all glitz and glamour. I mean,
Sure.
these folks got out and worked and sold their tickets
Right.
and got the crowd out.
Right.
There's been, in the time that I was there were probably over 100 weddings or wedding receptions.
Yeah.
Sometimes weddings were there too. A lot of young people. One lady got married there twice. so
I tell you what.
she was so good the first time she came back.
We
the
got to do it
second.
twice
That's
here.
right.
That's
It was a different
awesome.
person. But,
Yeah.
but
So,
anyway.
well, that's awesome.
Anyway, it's been it was a fast trip. Like I said, I've been gone for 8 years.
Yeah.
And
Seems like yesterday, I'm sure.
It does. And the last 8 years I was here went by so quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, just so quickly. I mean, of course, things were never routine. No
Yeah.
2 days were the same.
That's right.
You weren't doing the same thing every day. There were similarities, and
But,
annually you had to
trains
put a
moving.
budget together and a season and stuff
Right.
like that. But every day was a little bit different. A lot of surprises and a lot of things you had to handle just on the cuff. There were things that would happen during a performance of a. I think we were doing Wizard of Oz, and the power went out.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of. We're off to see the wizard, and we were off.
We were off.
We were off. Period.
And no more
And
wizard.
came back, and we experimented with a few things. Did some dinner theaters, and had a little outdoor series called the Back Porch, which played on the weekends.
Right.
And these gave local artists,
Sure. Yeah.
folk singers, Americana type
Yeah,
things,
exactly.
bluegrass, blues,
Yeah.
jazz. They
People need
came
a
in.
stage sometimes.
Yeah, we if it rained or something, or sometimes we just put them on stage. They'd prefer it. But that little amphitheater
Yeah.
saw a lot of fun over
Right.
the years. And we the what most people call the lobby, I call it the gallery, showcased a good bit of artwork.
Yeah.
Burke Quilters
All the
Guild would
time.
come in about this time of the year,
Yeah.
and just it looked like a cathedral
Yeah.
from all the quilting that was
Yeah.
in there. It was just hundreds
Beautiful.
of quilts, and it was a competition
Yeah.
and display both. But and so we could always rely on them. The high schools could show their art,
Yeah.
not just in the hallways on a cinder block wall,
Right.
but in a gallery.
In a
and their
gallery,
parents
man.
could come in. They could have a reception.
That's a lot of pride
All
there,
again,
Bill.
a lot of pride.
Yeah, I
and
like that.
a lot of opportunity for
Yeah.
them, and just it, if it wasn't fun, we didn't do it hardly.
That's
you
right.
know?
That's what we want. We want to build for the next generation. If it ain't fun, let's not do it. And,
That's right.
well,
So,
Bill, man, thanks for coming and stopping by, man. Let's do this again. I know
We
it was
will.
kind of a short notice, and I appreciate you just
Okay.
stopping in and having a brief talking, and and I look forward to talking some more.
I'm going back up the mountain where it's cool.
I know, man. It's that time of year here where it starts getting warm quick, you know. So
Well, when I left the house this morning, it was 34 degrees, and I'm going back. It's probably 70 now,
Yeah.
and up there it'll still be about 55 or 60. So
Yeah.
I haven't changed into my summer gear much
that's
yet.
right.
Not ready for that.
We'll be wearing shorts pretty soon.
We've got a little shorter summer season
Yeah.
than you do down here, but I miss a lot.
Sure.
I miss. I guess the bottom line on all this is people.
That's right.
You got to
miss your
have
friends
people and good
people.
people, and they become friends
Yes.
over time. And,
Right.
it was good to be able to associate with so many good and qualified people, especially with the city. Like I said,
Yeah.
I worked under 3 or 4 city managers. Every one of them were behind 100%, 110%.
Yeah.
Had a mayor that supported us all the way along
Yeah.
and didn't mind to tell us, if we needed to do something a little differently.
Sure.
Which you need. I mean,
Yeah.
you need to be
Occasionally.
squared up every now and then.
Yeah, every now and then shake the Yahtzee cup up and see what
That's
comes
right.
out.
And city departments, and that's, I guess, the really one unusual thing about Commerce, somewhat unusual. It was a city department,
Yeah.
just like public safety,
Right.
just like public works and electric, water, anything like that.
It's part of it.
It's part of it, and it was treated as part of it. It wasn't the stepchild by
Yeah.
him, and never was.
That's right.
And I hope it continues.
Yeah,
that
that's
way.
right. We're gonna make sure. So, well, thank you once again for being with us on Morgan Live. Look forward to seeing Bill Wilson again, and thank you again.